Okay, this is Tom Waddell, Chair. Calling the meeting to order at 13:04. First we'll do a roll call. Nicholas Barraza,
Present.
Robert Carpenter, Robert Hanovich, Andrew Schaus,
Present.
Colby White.
This is Commissioner White. I'm present.
Okay. Okay, before we go on, for Commissioner Barraza, we were gonna have everybody kind of give just a brief introduction of themselves. If you can hear us over the rain.
Maybe hail.
Oh, no, no, no. Okay,
Yes.
so, first I'll introduce myself, then we'll do the commissioners and then do, airport staff. Sounds good? Okay, my name is Tom Waddell. I'm a retired Air Force colonel, been on the committee for 3 years, I think. And, been the chair for about a year and a half. Extensive Air Force experience, and that's what drew me to the Airport Commission. So I want to welcome you to the commission, and I think you'll enjoy your time. Okay. Andrew, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Andrew Schaus. I'm a local here in Flagstaff and a pilot. That was what kind of drew me into the Airport Commission. I own a business and I'm a W-2 for a corporation doing marketing and websites, SEO, and all of that sort of thing, with other small, medium-sized local businesses here. So yeah, aside from that past in history, I thought putting it all together, this might be a good way to get involved in my local community.
Thanks. Colby, how about you?
Colby, you might be muted if you're speaking already.
Hey, sorry about that. Hi, nice to meet you. My name's Colby White. I was a warrant officer in the Army Aviation Unit back in Chicago for the National Guard for a while. I have my private pilot's license, active in a few other local community things, and this is just a good way to give back and help support the airport and support the team out there. So it's nice to meet you, and I hope you enjoy your time.
And Nicholas, how about you giving us a little of your background?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm currently driving back up I-17, so my connection is spotty. I was hoping to attend last week in person, but I know since we had to move it, my schedule's kind of wild and I have to plan in advance. But I really appreciate y'all having me. I'm excited to be here. I've been a Flagstaff local since 2012. I moved here initially because I was a pro runner, and obviously Flagstaff is a hub for pro endurance athletes. I've been in aviation for a while. Funny enough, I was supposed to go to walk school for the National Guard to fly helos, and I had a shoulder surgery after I was a pro athlete that prevented me from doing it. So Colby and I have sort of that in common. I have a lot of military aviation friends, whether in the Air Force or the Army. Just about to finish my PPL, and I'm a pilot myself. I love to fly. I also love Flagstaff as a community. I've been involved sort of socially and politically since I moved here. And then, as soon as I started to get on the PPL route, I really wanted to get involved with the airport, just because there's so many things going on in the area, and one thing that's a big passion of mine is hopefully helping bringing more of like a flight program to the Flagstaff area. I'm really passionate about aviation education and increasing opportunities for younger people and under-income youth, particularly like areas I grew up in. I didn't know I could even be a pilot when I was younger. And of course, there's so many things around airports with tourism and with the business opportunities and operations that I'm also equally passionate about too. So just thank you for everyone for having me, and I'm excited to be here and contribute.
Okay, well, welcome, Nicholas. Looking forward to meet you in person. I'm just going to have the staff introduce themselves. We're going to start with Brian.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Gall, Director of the Flagstaff Airport. Been at the airport about 4.5 years, and in this role, little over 2, coming up on 2.5. So appreciate everybody being here today, and thanks for everybody's efforts joining the airport commission, and I look forward to today's meeting.
Okay, and Adam?
Adam Yelling, Airport Programs Manager. Been in this role for 2 years now. Prior to that, I was working in Public Works, and so I was one of their engineers, if you will. So altogether, it's about 10 years. And yeah, it's been fantastic. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and Claire?
Hi, my name's Claire Harper. I'm the Airport Communications Manager. I've been with the city for 15 years in various roles. I've been in this position for 3 years. And I moved up to Flagstaff for undergrad many, many years ago, and I haven't left.
Great. And I don't think Tim's on here, right?
He's out of it.
Michaela?
Hi, I'm Missy Ella. I've been with the airport for 5.5 years. I have been with the city also in various other roles previously to that. But I am very happy to have everybody here.
Great. Norval, do you want to introduce yourself since you're kind of a regular?
My name is Orville Wiseman, Wiseman Aviation Fixed Base Operator. We opened our doors, April 1st, 1999. So I think at this point, now that my ops guys are retired, I've probably been around here longer. Of course, I
Okay,
look exactly the same as I did then.
yes. Only younger.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we get started with the commission protocols, I wanted to let everybody know that Commissioner Hanovich and myself are terms expire on the 1st of October. And on the 26th of August, this coming Monday, the council is going to review 9 applications for 3 positions, and 2 of those applications are current, mine being one of them. So we'll see how that turns out, see who gets appointed, and maybe welcome some new people to the airport commission. Oh, okay, it's Tuesday, excuse me. I'm retired. I'm lucky if I know what day it is today, so. Okay, and with that, we want to review the commission meeting protocols.
Yes, that will be perfect. My name is Regina Stasky, Deputy City Clerk for the city. So my role with boards and commissions is I oversee the program as a whole. We have 26 boards of commission in Flagstaff, so we have quite a few of them, wide range of, responsibilities and roles that they play. So I kind of want to go through a little bit of that, little refresher on open meeting law and some public interest, and then questions if you have time for that. So I wanted to welcome,
Sorry, we're having a little delay.
okay.
I
I
was
did
gonna
want to
say,
give
anybody else?
So sorry, I paused. for a
Sorry to
moment.
interrupt. No, you guys can go ahead.
So I wanted to take a moment to welcome the May appointment, Nico. I know we just did introductions, so that's wonderful, but I just want to shout out him as well here. So boards and commissions, they make recommendations and to council in general. Council can accept those recommendations. They can ask for changes to the recommendations, send it back, or not accept the recommendation altogether. Staff liaison's role is to ensure compliance with open meeting law, which we'll dive into a little bit more, answer questions related to city policy and procedures, coordinate involvement with other departments and commissions. I think you guys have that where other staff come in, or, you guys need answers to questions from other departments. And then reporting on the recommendations to council. We have different types of boards and commissions. So, we have a lot of them that are just advisory, and then we have ad hoc and quasi judicial. Advisory and ad hoc are what most of them fall under, and what you guys fall under as well for the airport commission. So you guys, again, have that responsibility of making those recommendations. Ad hoc is for specific issues asked by council, and then quasi judicial problem with that every time. Is actually a public body other than the Court of Law that possesses power to hold hearings and make decisions. So that would be like Board of Adjustment, or Building and Fire Code of Case. I don't know how often you guys do informal working groups.
We haven't done that in the past.
Not that we have, yeah.
So, your commission can have subcommittees or informal working groups. Subcommittees are a bit more formal, and sometimes can be completely formalized. For example, bicycle advisory, pedestrian advisory actually were subcommittees, of the Transportation Commission, and then they became their own committees. Informal working groups is what you'll see much more often. Working within commissions, it's a group that's identified within the commission, but it doesn't have to be a forum and it doesn't have to be all commission members. It can be the public. And they're created for research or gathering information, and they can provide recommendations back to the commission on a specific project. And then the commission kind of has that ultimate say on how that recommendation goes to council, but the nice thing about informal working groups, especially if you have a topic that keeps coming back to the commission or needs a lot more research, is you don't have to have minutes, you don't have to have, again, a forum or an agenda. The informal working groups truly are informal, and it kind of helps the commission expedite other processes and projects. Going on. Okay, so open meeting law, there's two core concepts. All meetings of a public body shall be public meetings, and all persons so desiring shall be permitted to attend and listen to the deliberations and proceedings. And the second core concept is that it is the public policy of the state that meetings of public bodies be conducted openly, and that notices and agendas be provided for such meetings which contain such information as is reasonable, and necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed or decided. A lot of words, but we're gonna break it down a little bit. So those two core concepts pretty much go over high level the agendas, the minutes, and why we have them. But why we have open meeting law is, for one, to protect the public, so avoiding decision making in secret and promoting accountability and encouraging public officials to be involved responsibly and, be responsive to the different happenings among the city officials. We also have it to protect the public officials though. So this helps, the notice part of it helps to make sure that officials aren't being excluded. So that's why we always make sure we have quorum, we're communicating, the agendas have more than 24 hours when they're being posted. It helps with public officials not feeling blindsided and well educated when making decisions. And so for you guys as well, those public packets or the packets put together by staff, so you guys have that ahead of time. You can come feeling prepared to the meeting. And then the minutes to memorialize what has happened. It also maintains the integrity of the government. It better informs citizens, and it really helps build trust between citizens. A little bit more statutes here. So a meeting is going to be a gathering through technological devices of a form of a body in which you're discussing or proposing or taking action, including deliberations. The part that I really want to just reiterate here is email communications do qualify as a quorum. So that's why we always say do not reply all, or that's why staff is always BCCing commissioners, because we do not want to get in a situation where communications are happening over email or discussions on topics that should be happening for the public. Also, any emails are public record. We do get public records all the time in the clerk's office asking for communications with commissioners, not staff. So just remembering that everything in the public record is very important. Quorum requirement, so it's going to be the majority of the membership. So even if you have a vacancy, like here, we have 6. You still need 4 for a quorum to make decisions. Again, just making sure we have enough voices in the room. And that's why it's very important to make sure you're RSVPing or letting your staff leader know when you're not going to be here, because otherwise we're not able to make decisions. If you don't have a quorum, you can't meet, which unfortunately I know you guys have experience with. So again, making sure you're here and you're fulfilling your responsibilities as a under oath of office for your commission. Okay. Almost done. So again, really that openness to the public, all the agendas will have when your meeting's occurring, what's being discussed, 24-hour notice. If your staff liaisons aren't posting within 24 hours, then you cannot meet as well. So again, very transparent to the public, what's happening and what legal action and motion or votes are happening. And then only agenda items can be discussed. So I'm not sure if you guys have had this happen, but sometimes discussions can get off track a little bit, or people ask questions that maybe aren't on the agenda, and it really needs to be proposed for another time then, because the public did not have enough time. Commissioners did not have enough time to have all the information on the item that may be occurring. The only rule to everything I just said is executive sessions. So executive sessions, they still need 24 hours to post. But it's with the attorneys and commissioners. I'm not sure if you guys do executive session regularly.
We have not.
Okay. So usually council does executive session, so that makes sense. It is, there's only certain topics that you can have executive sessions on. So, but those do not, those are not open to the public, and that's the exception to that. There are penalties if found in violation of open meeting law, so they can be up to $500 of commissioners, and those are personally paid for. The city does not pay if you violate open meeting law. So again, you know, constant emailing and replying all that, you know, it could be a violation of open meeting law. So just constantly being aware of your responsibilities as a commissioner.
Speaking of quorum, I think one of our commissioners just dropped off. So
Oh,
it's gonna be right back on here.
and again, violating open meeting law, you can also be subject to removal. Social events with quorum, we do have a notice of quorum, so if there's events, it happens, people are all at, as long as, again, being aware that no action is taken. We post a notice of quorum at City Hall, and online, so people know, you know, the airport commission may be at this event. Obviously, we're not asking you guys to not speak to each other, but just be aware of what it looks like when there's, you know, a whole group of you from the airport commission standing around chatting, and what kind of the public may view that as. So going into decorum a little bit, the chair is the presiding officer and for all the proceedings. And in the absence of the chair, the vice chair will act as chair. Members only speak after recognition by the chair, and the chair shall not unreasonably hold that recognition. When two or more members wish to speak at the same time, the chair shall determine the order of speaking and recognize the first speaker. While a member is speaking, no other member shall be interrupting or except to make a point of order or personal privilege. A point of order would be really if you're getting really off topic. Other than that, we really just want to avoid interrupting altogether. We want to make sure everyone has their chance in a fair amount of time to say what they would like to on every topic. Also with decorum, again, cannot reiterate it enough, just being on time to the meetings. You've RSVP'd, it's not just staff time, there's other commissioners, there's other outside people, other presenters. It's really important to ensure timeliness to your commission meetings. Other tips for meetings, just kind of going along again with decorum here, refraining from side conversations during meetings, having your phone ringers off, computer sounds off, waiting for a previous person to finish their comments. Again, want to stay away from interrupting people when they're speaking. Speaking clearly for the audience, and if you're unable to attend in person, making sure you're communicating with your staff liaison. And again, if you're absent for more than 2 consecutive regular meetings without prior notification or an excused absence, you are subject to removal from office as well. And then going into conflict of interest a little bit here. So there's different kinds. There's substantial and remote. Substantial would be any interest that affects you or a relative's financial or property interest. In that case, you would want to recuse yourself from the situation, leave the room, make it known for the official record, so the minutes will put in there that there's conflict of interest, you remove yourself from the conversation. With a remote conflict of interest, it's deemed minor and it doesn't trigger you not to have to participate, and you can still vote on items. And as typical with government entities, any gifts and bribes, and stay away from that. Even if it seems small, you don't know how it could seem to the public by accepting things like gift certificates and whatnot. So I do have online the full manual, and I am always available on email or phone as well if there's people that have questions now or have any other follow-up questions as well. I'm usually at City Hall, so I can be contacted there as well. Anyone have any questions?
No questions?
I have a comment. Thank you so much for your presentation. And we do want to let commissioners know that we will start enforcing that if you are at 2 consecutive meetings, 2 meetings, we don't hear a response from you, you RSVP and you don't show. We will be moving forward with recommending to council that they're removed. And we're doing this so we can continue to have meetings and move forward with airport things. So we understand that things come up, just let us know, but we will be enforcing that.
And appreciate you coming out.
Of course.
Hopefully you won't get caught in the rain going on. Good. Okay, public comment. Don't see any public today. Nobody online? Okay. Announcements? Anybody have any announcements, change to the agenda? Okay. Approval of minutes. I hope everybody got a copy of the minutes. Pretty detailed copy. I thought they were great. Refresh my memories. It's been a while since we were talking. So can I have a motion?
Chair Waddell, I'm not sure we have enough folks to vote on the approval of the minutes since we only have 3 members who were here for the last meeting.
Oh, okay.
You could still vote even if you were not here.
Okay.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
This is Commissioner Chow, so motion to approve the minutes is written.
Can I get a second?
This is Commissioner White. I'll second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor of approvals, say aye.
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 And any opposed? And the minutes from the last meeting are approved. I don't think we're having a city council update because she's not online with us today, Lori Matthews. So we'll go straight to my favorite, the staff reports, and we're gonna start with Brian for the airport operations updates.
Thank you, Chair Waddell. It's been a little while, so I'm going to give an update, not just on the past month, July, but we're going to go back everything for May. So our last meeting was in May before we had May's numbers. So looking at employments, and as a reminder, employments are defined as revenue passengers boarding flights. So non-revenue passengers, people that are airline employees, for example, don't count toward those employment numbers. May's employments were up 9.4% for 2024. It was a very strong May for us, the highest we had since 2022. In fact, even a little bit higher than 2022, which is especially noteworthy because that's when we had 2 air carriers. So for May, we actually had more employments than we had United here as well as American. June's employments were up 2.5%, tracking a little bit closer to last year. Now, July's employments were a little bit of a shift in that they were down 7.3% in 2024. Claire's going to go over some of the updates we had from the Jumpstart Air Service Conference later, but we believe that's a result of airlines anticipating some softening demand due to some economic concerns. So they did reduce our flight schedule for July and August. We do expect to see that ticking back up again with more flights starting in September. I don't have any kind of crystal ball into the airline forecast, but from here at the airport, it seems like I have not seen the slowing in terms of passenger demand or load factor that might be indicative of a softening of the economy or the travel demand. So hopefully flights for the rest of the year will continue to bump back up, tracking above where we were earlier in this year. Now, for total aircraft operations, each aircraft takeoff and landing is counted as an operation. This year has been particularly strong for aircraft operations, kind of month over month. May's operations were up 13.2% from 2024. June's operations were down slightly at 2.5%. July's operations were up 2.1% from 2024. Orville's going to go over a little bit of the activity we've had out of the airport over the past few months. But certainly a lot of military activity. Wildland firefighting aircraft have been making stops here. It seems like the weather, it's been pretty favorable towards a significant amount of GA traffic. Seeing a lot of that heavy commercial or heavy private stuff. So large commercial or large private jets, things like that seem to be pretty steady this whole year so far. And for parking revenue, I want to start this with a note that we've actually revised, I think, all of the parking data that we've been sharing in this table for the last 2+ years. Missy was doing some research into our parking system, and I think we had noted how we were a little bit surprised that the parking revenue didn't always track as closely with employments as we expected it to. We found out we were getting our parking revenue numbers from the city finance team, but those numbers were based on reconciliation date rather than parking date. So there was a lag in some of those numbers that was not reflecting when the parkers were actually paying at the kiosks, rather when those transactions were being reconciled in our financial system. So we revised all those to reflect the actual parking date versus the date on the finance end for that. So really, I invite everybody to take a look at this, and we can have a deeper conversation into it at a future meeting if anybody would like to. But what I've noticed is that this year's parking numbers, all are tracking higher than or almost all are tracking higher than their associated months from 2024, which does reflect that increase in employments we were seeing for most of the early part of this year, a little bit more closely than what we were seeing in the previous numbers. So for the past 3 months, parking revenue in May was up 50% from what we were in 2024, which again reflects that super strong May we saw in employments with the highest year since we had a second carrier here. June's parking revenue being up 9.7%, and July's parking revenue up 13.9%. Again, we do expect to see those to track downward a little bit as the parking starts to catch up with the reduction in employments we saw to the reduced flight schedule for the last few months. I would expect to see parking revenue lag employments a little bit, since employments for departing passengers, the ones who usually park on our lot, are going to be later than they get their flight. So flight comes first, the employment comes first, the parking revenue comes after, for however long their trip was. So I do expect to see that come back to earth a little bit in August, but May, June, and July in particular have been pretty outstanding in terms of parking revenue.
Hey, Brian, can I ask a quick question on this number here? If you were to do the data based off of transactions, what's the percentage of people that are leaving the airport that are choosing to park?
That's a great question. I don't have that number, but I can look into that and come back to that with you next meeting if that'd be helpful.
Yeah, that would be great to see if the pricing is going to affect that decision at all, like post increase and after the increase.
That's a good
Yeah.
metric. Yeah, that's not something we've added, but I like that idea. I'll look into how we can track that down. It's a little bit tricky because we can probably track transactions, but it's hard to tie those to individuals. But for example, it's not going to show, I'm not sure that we'll be able to, but we can probably drop out $0 transactions. So people who are just dropping off in the parking lot, we might want to remove them from the list. I'll look into those numbers a little bit and come with some options at the next meeting so we can go over that in a little more detail. But thank you for the suggestion, Commissioner White.
No, I appreciate
Hey.
that. Thank
And Andrew, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was curious. I know you'd had these numbers for us. I just don't have them on the top of my head. Where were we at on occupancy, like overall occupancy on the main lot and then the overflow lot?
Yeah, and that does vary a lot. Thanks for the question, Commissioner Schaus. That does vary a lot from day to day. But typically, we're sitting at approximately between the two lots, generally under 50% combined. So if you say
Gotcha.
we have roughly 800 parking spaces available, we usually have somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 parkers, 350 to 400. We do exceed that 50% mark in the holiday weeks. So holidays, we tend
Yeah.
to be in the 550 to 600 range. We might not have hit 600. I know we've been over 5. Which as a reminder, the original parking lot, the terminal parking lots held 385 vehicles. So we were anytime we're over 385, we're eventually
doing
in the
good.
area where we needed the expansion. But
Well,
yeah,
and I was
typically
curious
we're
if we could keep up with that as we see the prices change, because occupancy would, to me, be a pretty large indicator of how that's going.
absolutely. Would you like us to add well, we can definitely add a graphic for occupancy rates by lot in total for the parking system. Maybe I might want to bring some data in regards to transactions before we figure out how to present that. So maybe next month we can definitely add the occupancy graphs. That should be easy enough. But we might want to bring back to this team some information on parking transactions to figure out what of that is helpful that you would like us to keep track of for future meetings, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, any other questions before we? Okay, Brian, back to you.
Chair Waddell, I think that was everything I had for the operations update, unless there are any other questions. Thank you.
Hey, looking forward to your presentation, Orville.
Oh, thanks. There, are you the one running it?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, we'll start out with some upcoming events. It's been so long since I've been here. I don't know what we've had and I haven't talked about. Flagstaff Symphony's coming up weekend after next, sipping with the symphony. It's third or fourth year we've done that. We are the key sponsor. Chambers decided they would love to have their annual event in my hangar again, October 23rd, which we're the key sponsor. We always donate the facilities, just so everybody knows we don't charge. And then Master Corral got a hold of me and said, hey, we'd love to have an event out at your place. And so they came out and looked at it. And they're on the calendar for November 15th. So just so you know, I a while back decided, because first of all, we try to do about one a quarter because we have to dump the hangar, get it ready. It's pretty invasive on our operations, to be honest. I'm happy to do this. I try to do what I call apolitical organizations. Groups that are benefiting everybody, like Victim Witness, so forth and so on. And we do not do any personal events because then you just get all over the place on that. So yeah, we have that coming up. Clarity. Next slide up. Some of the things that are going on. We actually now have 5 licensed airframe and power plant mechanics, which I've never had before. 2 of which have their inspector authorizations. The 3rd studying for his IA, so he'll have it soon. I was shooting for 6, realizing I might not get that. And honestly, everybody knows how hard it is to find people in this town. To be able to have 5 AMPs, licensed AMPs, is pretty incredible. That allowed me to go into the next item there, which is we just entered into a formal on-call agreement with SkyWest Airlines to provide 24/7 service that starts September 1. They're really happy. I'm happy. As you've heard me say before, historically I would have about 3 AMPs, 1 IA. And the problem with that is, like when United came in, it put a lot of strain on the maintenance department. And the classic was, literally being out at 2 a.m. in February in a snowstorm in a de-icer bucket, trying to fix an issue with a tail on one of the regional jets. It's just hard on that guy. He can't come in the next morning. So having this level of staffing in the shop allows us to, if a guy's got to come out and work half the night, then it's fine if he doesn't come in the next day. So we're really excited about it. It's a great group of guys. And, I'm also doing this in anticipation if and when that next airline comes. So we'll have everything in place. Let's see. I've run all the company aircraft through the paint shop. The last trainer's in there right now. Should be done. They said this week. I don't know. So I'm glad that'll be over with. It's been incredibly expensive. It's about $50,000 to paint interior with 72. And it goes up there. But that'll be the 3rd time we've done it. it's kind of hard to believe, as long as we've been in business 25 plus years, I've kidded around about, I was telling Brian the other day, we've actually applied for a call center. And I don't know, part of my sixth sense of humor or whatever, we've applied for Pinecone. So, it appears we may get it. There, we checked today, it takes about 3 weeks, it's been out for about 2 weeks. They had to check with the military units. So instead of, if you're not familiar, saying like, Cessna, 234 Whiskey Alpha, it might be like Pinecone 3. I can't wait to come roaring into San Diego's Pinecone. So, the next thing that's kind of interesting is, I have a lot of cameras up, and if I was to be just totally candid, when we remodeled the place years back, some of the stuff came down, technology's changed, we aren't really recording much these days. It's time to upgrade that system. I've been in talks, all that has changed quite a bit with the advancement of artificial intelligence. And the one company I'm talking to is one of the leaders in it right now. And basically they use your equipment. Their thing is not selling you cameras like a traditional security company do. Their thing is providing you the service. So everything runs into a box. It's also going out to the internet. But I said, okay, and I'll give you an example. In the winter when the airline goes back to a different schedule, our first guy comes in at 4:30. And they don't show up, that's a bad day. And so we're gonna have some face recognition so I can get sent an email, because unfortunately I'm usually up about then too. And just getting an email knowing, hey, so-and-so came in the door at 4:30 assures me that we're not gonna mess everybody's schedule up in the airline or whatever. More what I think would be useful information for me is I said, hey, can it recognize a fuel truck and tell me if it's driving too fast across the ramp? They said, yeah, we can train it to do that. You can train it, actually. I said, can it, there was a few things like that. I didn't ask about the phone, but that'll be next to, like, you could have it recognize if an employee's on a phone, and you can set like 5 seconds if they go out and look at. You can find out they're sitting there on their phone for 30 seconds and not watching it. It's too fluid of an environment. And with the way everybody is today and the cell phones, I always kid around, the sippy bottle in one hand and the cell phone in the other. I have a great staff, don't get me wrong, but these are the type of things we're going to be doing. I said, can it read end numbers? He said, yeah, you could probably teach it to do that. So give me a report every day of what's rolling in and out of the ramp. So we already have ADSB, and I didn't really like that, and I felt like that was a huge incursion on my privacy. Because you look me up, see where I'm going, right? So I don't feel like this is a huge invasion of privacy. Plus, we've had over the years, on occasion, somebody comes in and their airplane got hit in the middle of the night by another airplane. The person left. And now it's this big debacle. What happened? It can also, the AI can spot they're doing this in shopping centers, collisions. Another car backs into another car, whatever. So it's going to be an interesting time at Wiseman Aviation, come probably by the fourth quarter of this year. So I'm pretty dedicated to that. So anyway, go ahead. There, thank you. Brian talked about the military, and you're seeing almost every weekend we've got military staying with us. We've developed a really good relationship with some of the West Coast bases, in particular like Camp Pendleton, the Marine Corps. I ran a report because we're hosting an event in the hangar here in an hour and a half for NALA. I'm going to tour the airport and everything. I just want to get some stats. It was interesting. I didn't really realize that the Marine Corps is our largest customer military-wise by a substantial amount. And it's because they're bringing a lot of Ospreys, whatever. We just had those Cobras roll through, but they love it here. It's high altitude testing, or I should say training, not testing. And they love the town. They love coming here, and it's good. It's not just good for Wiseman Aviation. It's good for the airport, fuel fee. It's good for in town because they're getting hotels, obviously restaurants, rental cars, so forth and so on. So that's kind of what's going on. That's all right, Claire. You can go to the next one. We have MB helicopters. I didn't put that on there. Out here right now doing some testing on the ramp. The fire up on the canyon, we had up to 5 aircraft supporting that, 2 lead airplanes, a couple thermal imaging, and a lead plane. We just got a Forest Service lead plane a couple days ago. It's come back and based with us. They're very nervous about. I was just looking at our ERCs. They have come down, but they're almost historically high right now as far as how dry the forest is. Uh, so, yeah, anyway, it's been pretty active. The branding update's done. That'll start propagating out here shortly. We were in talks with our fuel company about, hey, it's time for us to give us a newer truck, and we went quite a few. And that took about 120 days, and so we should have a fairly new jet truck out here, and we're talking about maybe buying one too. That goes in turn with the next item, which is I'm not so excited about because I've been so many of them, but most of my managers want to go back to NBAA in Las Vegas in October, the big show. And we're specifically going to focus on fuel vendors. I think it's time to go back and review that. Ground service equipment vendors and point of sale vendors. It might be time to upgrade our point of sale system next quarter. So, kind of a summary of what's been going on. The year started out a bit slow, which was strange given we didn't have snow, It's picked up. And normally what happens is June is our busiest month. October is our second busiest month in a typical year. It starts slowing down in July and August. That hasn't happened this year. The numbers are crazy, to be honest. It's great. General aviation, like Brian said, traffic steady, turbine traffic steady. Fuel prices are slowly retreating. Staffing wise, we were up to 33 people this summer, which is the most I've ever had. We have about 30 right now. And I was just going over to my son who does the scheduling. I want 2 at every shift because we're just too busy anymore to kind of do the old models as we went in slower times, an opener or midday, a closer one. So 2 CSRs, 2 openers, 2 midday linemen, 2 closing linemen. So we're continuing to recruit. We had some NEU football players playing for us again. We still have some players that are no longer on the team, and that's been a great source for us. One thing I'll talk about, last year we started having the team bus out. They called me this year. Hey man, we really don't have money in our budget for the buses. Well, that's been a problem. And so Grant and Josh worked something out with them where we're going to continue to park their bus. I'll try to get a hold of you last week. I think you'll be fine with this. Park the plane down the other ramp. We're like, we can't have you all come through the building anymore. And we got escorting issues and everything else. They're all going to congregate in the parking lot. We're going to take them in groups out to the airport. They seem to be okay with that.
Sounds good.
So yeah, if there's weather, we'll put it in the hangar. Let's see, is there anything else? No, that's it. Anybody has any questions? Thanks.
Thanks, Arlo. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay. Hey, I walked through the new coffee barn down there today. And in fact, I peeked in the gift shop. I really like that Flagstaff t-shirt that they got. I might have to pick one of those up.
Please do.
So Adam, give us the project and grant updates.
Sure. I'm just gonna go over a couple today. So one item we discussed briefly at meetings ago is our TSA storefront. Just as a reminder, you may recall back in December 24th, Christmas Eve, 2024, the coil door for the TSA screening area failed. The internal coil spring inside the barrel broke. And so we were kind of at an impasse, because that means we couldn't secure the area. So what we did was we partnered with our facilities team here internally, and they agreed to designate it as an emergent issue. So we had a contractor come out here, again, Christmas Eve, to come take a look at that and see what we could do. And what we did is we constructed a temporary van door with supporting wall on each side. The top illustration kind of shows what we ended up doing. We knew that that was going to be a temporary fix to this. It is a change of condition, and we did notify our TSA counterparts as well of this change of condition. It gave us an opportunity to kind of hit a pause button internally once we got the emergency door put in, to kind of stand back and go, okay, wait a minute. How do we want to actually correct this for future? So working with the TSA as well as our facilities team here at the city, we looked at it and said, okay, what if we put a storefront back into it as opposed to a coil door? 'Cause we had several issues with that coil door over the years of it having issues. So what we are proposing to do is to put basically a double door where the screening area is going to be, and then a third door next to it for just a man door. Now, these doors are going to now be outfitted with card readers. Currently, we're going the old school, the old fashioned way with a key. And we'd like to get away from checking out keys and trying to check them back in. So these doors are going to be, we're going to have fobs on it. And what that'll also allow us, when we do have our cleaning crews in there, now they'll have direct access through a fob system that we can turn on and off at any point in time. So needless to say, TSA is really happy with this. Where we currently are on this, we went ahead and got pricing from a contractor. We were approved through the budget process to move forward with this. We do have a contract that's been signed by all parties. We've had the contractor out, made some measurements. There's some haven't been out here, and currently we're going through material submittal reviews, and they're going ahead and producing these storefronts. There is a bit of a lead time on them, and so we're looking like September. We should start work on this. So in our next meeting, I'll probably come back with a little bit more information as to how and when, but we're looking at a tentative start time of September. Our goal is obviously to have this done before the holidays. And I do not see that as being a problem, but there's going to be some phasing. We're going to work with our partners with our TSA to make sure we've got that phasing plan kind of wrapped up with a nice plan on it. So that's one of the projects I want to bring today. Before we go to the next, do we have any questions or comments?
Does the FAA get involved in approving any of that stuff? Did you have to go through any of that, or is it straight TSA?
For purposes of this particular project, the FAA does not need to be aware of this. We are not using grant funds
Okay,
to pay for this. We're using local funds. We have notified my counterpart at the FAA of this project, thinks it's great. But he doesn't need to review any contracts or material submittals or anything.
cool. Thanks.
Any other, that's a great question. Any other questions?
Chair Waddell, if I could add one minor
Sure.
comment. One thing that I think is great that Adam's doing with his design is that those double doors are gonna be about 7 feet wide and 9 feet tall. Super tall door. Is that right, 9?
Correct.
The nice thing about that is that they're designed to allow the TSA equipment and the checkpoint to be moved in and out through that door. So if they need to replace equipment, because it is gonna be smaller than the old roll-up gate, hopefully it'll still be big enough to allow their for their current equipment. You never know what comes out in the future, but it will allow everything that they currently have in there. Sorry through.
We'll call that as a lesson learned. Okay, no further questions? All right. The second project, I want to talk a little bit about the snow removal equipment driven project. I know we talked about it at our last meeting. What I want to do is kind of just go through real quick, how we got to where we are and where we are and what our path forward is going to be. As we discussed last time, we met with the FAA and we went with our previous design, and there was some sticker shock there as far as the cost. And we also sat down and said, okay, what was eligible and what was ineligible from grant funding, with their opinions on that. So what we did was we went through, and there were some items on there we were all surprised were ineligible. But having said that, it was a great exercise for all of us to get on board, and we decided, okay, well, we'd like to go ahead and right size this particular project. Previously, we were looking at it from not only from storage of material, storage of rolling stock that we currently have in our inventory, but also what we were planning on purchasing over the next 5 to 7 years. So that's why the previous facility was quite a bit larger. And when we right-sized it, it came down quite a bit as far as size. We went from 25,000 square feet to about 16,000 square feet. I will note The important part about this right sizing is we didn't do this with blinders on, thinking that we'll never have to extend or make it the structure larger. We are doing that through this redesign process, knowing that there will be probably an opportunity to do an addition on this and what that would look like. So we are keeping that in mind, the big picture. Currently, the design team has submitted into the city for concept review and of the civil site, as well as some of the architectural renderings. That package has been put into the city for review. It's currently going through that process. However, because of funding constraints and what we need to do to bring to the FAA, we are still moving forward with the overall design, as well as working with a contractor that we brought on board through a solicitation months ago. All right, can you go to the next slide, please? Again, as a recap, we have two illustrations here on the screen. The one on the left was the original design, again showing it's 25,000 square feet. The illustration on your right would be the revised or right-sized illustration of the facility. Please note that we went from 6 bays with a storage of 12 vehicles to 4 bays with a storage of 8 vehicles, with room for future expansion. We currently have 8 pieces of equipment in our fleet with an asterisk. And that asterisk is going to be one of ours is a multifunctional type piece of equipment where it's got multiple attachments. So takes up a little bit more space, but we've got room for it. Also, of those 8 vehicles or rolling stock pieces of equipment we have, one of them we have on our ASIP as being a replacement vehicle. We need to replace one of our plows, so we will not be adding to the number. And both of these illustrations show a wash bay and maintenance bay. The previous one did have what could be considered as an administrative space. This one does not. That is ineligible. What we're looking at on the screen now are kind of we have a site view, if you will, where you can kind of see the building. The top illustration, top right corner, you'll notice the grayer of the 2 buildings is the ARC building right now, whereas the darker highlighted one to the right of that, that's going to be the new snow removal equipment building. So essentially, it's going to be right outside of the perimeter drive-through or drive around at the ARF station. We'll be connecting to their apron as well. We will have some retaining wall. Again, when we talked last time, that $33 million, 10% of that had to do with civil and site work. What we've done is we've really reduced the amount of earthwork. Currently, the civil engineering consultants are rerunning the numbers to see where we are as far as volumetrically. Before we were at 22,000 cubic yards of material infill that had to be brought in. We did stockpile some city projects throughout the city, so we do have a fair amount stored up, and we're hoping that the amount of material we have stored is going to be enough for this particular project. The illustration on the bottom portion there is kind of like a floor plan kind of layout. You can see the 4 bays plus the maintenance and the wash bay, where the maintenance and the wash bay are on the left-hand side, and then the vehicle storage is on the right side. Also, this particular illustration also shows, kind of hard to see, it kind of looks like a little bit of a ladder on the right-hand most. That is going to be storage for our chemical spreader. So we will have the opportunity to also have our chemical storage in this facility as well under dry conditions. We did get concurrence from the FAA in the direction that we are going with this. Matter of fact, we got overwhelming or resounding support from the FAA. They told us to please move forward. And so where are we going on the next steps? We are moving as fast as we can to get to that 60% plan set. And the reason why that's important is because our contract with the contractor is what's known as an alternative delivery type system or method. It is a construction manager at risk. And so once we get to the 60% mark, they can start really working on their pricing. We need to know what the pricing is because you may recall this is going to be in 3 phases, right? So we've got the first phase is going to be some earthwork, and some design work that we have to do. Phase 2 is going to be to finish up that design work and some of the steel and the long lead items. So SES, metal building, those type of elements are going to be in 2. And phase 3 is going to be pretty much the erection or the construction of this particular structure. We do have funding for our phase 1. It's currently in hand. Phase 2, we were notified this week from Mr. Crane, correct?
Yeah, from one of our legislators' offices.
Correct. We were approved for phase 2, so that will be going before council here shortly. And that phase 3 is that discretionary asset we're going to have to do. And the reason why we are pushing as fast and as hard as we can is because essentially they need to know what that number is. So we are feverishly working with both design and our construction partners on trying to make sure we can get those numbers. I owe that to the FAA by October, the end of October. And so far, we are looking pretty good for that. And that will be the final pricing, and that's ultimately what we're going to need for that ask for discretionary. I believe that was the last slide on this. Do we have any questions?
Adam, would you mind reminding everyone what the widths of the bay doors are for these to support the equipment?
Sure. Unfortunately, I can't give you just a nice round number because it varies. Essentially, we've got 2 different size doors for these. The widths of the doors in the maintenance bay and the 2 middlemost pull-through bays are 28 feet wide. And then the smaller ones are going to be 22 feet wide. The reason why we went to those various sizes is because this is going to be a pre-engineered metal building. We have to look at shear and those types of loading. And this gives us the capacity for the geometry we have to make it work as well. Currently, the ARF is at the smaller, the 24 feet wide. So we can get equipment in and out of there currently. So with it going a little bit wider, we are convinced we can make it happen. With one exception is going to be our larger broom. This will fit the large broom. Thank you.
I have a quick question. What time frame? What year?
Sure. We are looking at what we're targeting is essentially start with the shovels in the ground and spray. Because we have the funding for phase 1, phase 2. And we have been told that our counterparts in the FAA are going to push for this, even though it doesn't score well. They're going to really petition and they're going to be our champion for those discretionary funds. So if we find out for sure that it looks like we have a good opportunity or a possibility for that, both the contractor and the design lead, they want to get going on this. I think our design partners also want to get this thing built and put it behind them because we've been working on it for a long time.
When do you think it'll be fully closed?
18 months thereafter, about a year and a half. All depends on some of those lead times, like the SES, the metal building.
Just a quick question, having been down there some whatever. Is there any thought about putting another lane out for the taxiway from facility?
We did look at that.
Because it's a bit bottleneck when you had that piece of equipment stuck a few years ago there and
It was a little bit of a cost saving measure to help bring the cost down. Let's say use the existing lane rather than building an additional one.
I get that, but maybe in the future.
Yes, it's still on our radar, and we do have a bit of a null there. So we thought, going back to the cost savings, we didn't think we could have that capacity. And if we put a whole bunch of driveways, because we have one, DPS has one, and then we would have one for this one.
Right.
It's a lot of possibility for should kind of, I don't want to say the I word, but it could be some issue there as well. So we want to look at that more holistically, I think, moving forward.
You see, get import there for this?
There's so many. One last thing I'd like to say also, this particular right sizing, as I mentioned before, allows us to add onto the building a whole nother bay. What this also allows us to do is move that retaining wall that we originally had on the other side of Liberator Lane, the road that goes out to air traffic control. We pushed everything out there, series of retaining walls. What this allowed us to do is bring that in so we don't have to encroach on rental cars. We don't have to relocate a massive water line and gas line and sewer line. This will save us those utility costs. When they originally looked at this, they thought they could probably do this particular project on maybe between 20 and $24 million. So it was up to a minimum of $9 million reduction.
Adam, we got a couple of questions. Commissioner Barraza, do you have one?
I do. It's not really a question. I actually just got into town and I'm parking. So can I just come in the building and join you guys in person?
Please do.
Sure.
Okay. Awesome.
Just keep your phone on while you walk.
Yeah, we'll do.
Okay, and then Commissioner White, you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a quick question on the door sizes. These aren't gonna lock us into like smaller equipment if we want to expand in the future, right?
These will not lock us in.
Okay, I was just
Yeah,
curious.
Adam mentioned it briefly, but I think majority of our existing equipment is stored at the R station. Some of it's stored elsewhere on the airfield. The biggest door to our station is 24 feet wide, but the biggest door here being 28 feet wide. So we are already sort of building in the ability to expand as we're seeing these larger pieces of snow removal equipment come into service. And with, staffing challenges and a lot of pavement to move, that is something that we're trying to target to make sure that we can accommodate those. So great question. And that is something that at least our intent is that for any future we have the ability to foresee coming, we should be able to support that equipment.
Okay, yeah, because I think the largest brush truck that they have now is like 8 meters. So that would make sense.
And we got another question from Commissioner Schaus.
Yeah, I was just curious. You were mentioning time frame when they had originally started all this. I was curious, when had they originally started all the planning for this snow removal building?
2021.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
I guess the intense design effort started in 2021. It was identified in our master plan in 2018 as a high priority project. I don't know what discussions happened before that. So the
Gotcha.
planning starts long before the actual design effort. So from a planning standpoint, probably back in the 2016 to 2018 timeframe, and then from actually getting into the project, as Adam mentioned, 2021.
Gotcha. I still would want to raise a concern around the overall cost, even looking at the, contractor rate regulations and everything else, given it was bid in 2021 in the middle of all sorts of crazy supply chain issues. But it sounds like we're doing a pretty good job at that. So just wanted to raise that, as it still seems pretty high for a metal building, but I do understand all the rest with the presentations we've had.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaus. And one thing to note on that, so the design team started on it in 2021. The contractor didn't start on pricing until late 2024. So those prices are much more current. So up to that point, they were all estimates. That's why the number fluctuated so much in those years. It was our design team trying to estimate what the project would be. We actually started to get those hard numbers from the contractors last year. In addition to that, we are required to get independent fee estimates. So we are engaging additional contractors to back check these numbers. And even in addition to that, our airport staff has gone through and looked at other similar projects across the country. For example, Fargo built a snow removal equipment building in 2021. They completed it in 2021. It was roughly the same square footage as our original proposed design. That one was on a flat site, so it didn't have any of the earthwork requirements that Adam mentioned, and it was in the 20 to 21 to $22 million range without that earthwork need. So we are doing what we can to back check that and making sure we have other independent numbers, making sure those are appropriate.
Awesome. That's all we can ask. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And I just want to make a note in the minutes that Commissioner Barraza has joined us in person. Thanks. Good to see you. Okay, with that, Claire, bring us up on how many airlines you got coming in.
Wow. Thank you, Commissioner Waddell. In June, Brian and I attended Jumpstart along with Councilmember Lori Matthews. And Jumpstart's an air service attraction conference. It's the biggest annual air service attraction conference. We met with 9 airlines, which is certainly a record for us. We met with Alaska, Allegiant, American, Avelo, Delta, Frontier, Jet Suite X, United, and SkyWest. Jet Suite X is a public charter company, and then SkyWest flies for United, Delta, and Alaska. No, an American, yes. And so you certainly see SkyWest planes frequently flying in and out, but they're flying on behalf of American currently at our airport. And how these meetings go is it's like a speed dating. So you get 20 minutes with each airline. They give us a little update and then we share with them. Having 9 meetings certainly shows that there's interest in Flagstaff. We've never had that many meetings, so we were excited to do so. And then at the conference, we were able to, this is huge, we were able to secure 2 letters of support from airlines. The airlines prefer that until the information's public, that we don't share what airlines are going to provide the letter of support. So we'll certainly do that at the appropriate time. And so the letters of support are for the upcoming SCASD grant, which we've previously talked about, and that helps alleviate some of the startup costs for new air service to come in. And we are constantly checking for that application to open. Last year it opened in June, and the recipients were notified October 31st. So we check every day and we're hopeful that it will open. Talking to the airlines, they are kind of projecting more of a flat growth due to softening demand. Some of the rosy financial outlooks from the beginning of the year have softened a bit. And then we do see airlines that are refusing deliveries of aircrafts due to tariffs. Something new and exciting here you'll see in the terminal on our 4 digital displays, as well as we have another digital display we'll install in the old cafe space, the new coffee center, express visitor center, and that has our FIDs. So you'll see our arrivals and our departures on our new screen along with some other messaging. And then this end of July, we had NAU summer camp come for a visit. And the goal or the theme for the week was aviation careers. So we were able to take them over to Guardian, Wiseman. We had TSA do a presentation as well as the airport police. We went to the ARF station as well as the tower. And the campers and counselors said, it was the best one. Some of the counselors like, we weren't excited for this. We thought it was gonna be boring. And then they came out wanting to be traffic controllers or ARF people. So the kids, they're like, this is better than bowling. So the kids had a great time. And thank you for everyone. Everyone we did swaps, and this was the first time it was 30 kids. So it was the first time that we've done that. So we have them over at Guardian, over at Wiseman, the air traffic control tower, and then outside of ARF. That's all I have. If anyone has any questions.
Well, that's great. That's better news than the recent conferences, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 letters of support. So for our SCASD grant in the past, we had a letter of support from United. And last year we've never had a letter of support for the application before. So that was big. And then this year to have 2 letters of support is huge. And we've met and debriefed with the FAA, who awards the grant. And letters of support are great. They loved our 1 letter of support. So we're really hopeful with 2 letters of support that we'll have a really strong application this year.
And I know a lot of that has to do with your sparkling personality and being able to really charm them. I appreciate that.
It's all Ryan.
Okay, anything else? Any other reports that we're missing?
We may have just lost Commissioner Schaus. His icon just dropped away. Commissioner Shouts, are you still with us?
What's that mean? Quorum?
Yeah, we don't have quorum unless he jumps back on, so maybe we'll give him a minute here to see if he's able to join again.
Hey, Brian, it's Heidi. It looks like he's on the chat though, so
We'll give him a minute to see if he's able to rejoin.
He's trying to hop back on now.
Okay. Okay, just for my education. If we can't regain quorum. What do we do?
We have to return.
Have to adjourn.
I'm gonna give him a call.
Okay.
Could he join by cell phone in the middle of the table? Like, does he have to be on the Teams link?
My cell phone.
he can join by cell phone.
Hey, Andrew, it's Claire. Hey. We did not, but we need you to continue the meeting. We see that you're admitted now, which we'll go with, but if you don't stay on, would you be able to be on the phone? Okay, we'll resume. Thanks, Andrew. Got a lightning strike.
Yeah, there's like.
Okay, so we've been able to resume our quorum. And we got a discussion item on airport badging fees.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Waddell. This is a revisit to an item that we discussed in May. So I'm gonna go over this. I know we've got some new attendees that maybe haven't seen this before, and since it's been a little while, I'll just kind of start from the beginning. But so the Flagstaff Airport issues security access credentials, commonly referred to as badges. We can kind of use those terms interchangeably to anyone who needs unescorted access to the airfield or secured areas within the airport terminal. Broadly speaking, we have two different main categories of badges. One is an AOA badge. Those allow folks access into the what we call the air operations area. So basically inside the fence, but not in the area where commercial passenger employment or cargo activity is happening. The second badge type is SIDA, Secure Identification Display Area, or Sterile Area badges. Those sort of depend on whether you're inside or outside the building, but essentially the area in the terminal and in the apron where commercial cargo and passenger aircraft operate and board. This is an approximation, but normally we issue approximately 135 AOA badges annually and 90 SIDA or sterile area badges annually. There's no limit currently to the number of badges that can be issued per tenant, not individual, but meaning if someone has an aircraft storage permit for one of our hangars, They can ask for badges for as many people as they're willing to sponsor that need to have access to that aircraft. Flag is not currently charged for badges, and we're the only commercial service airport in the state of Arizona that does not so far. Next slide, please. So did want to talk a little bit about our costs for badging. You'll notice there's a different cost for initial badges versus renewals. So then those initial costs include the security background check. So every person that asks for a badge goes through a security background check process with the TSA. We send some information about those people out, and then it comes back after the security background check. So that's why the initial badges are a little bit more expensive. And the process for the site and serial area badges is more involved and involves more steps and more background checks, which is why those are a little bit more expensive. So just to note, kind of at the bottom there, the total cost for initial badges for AOA is $86, where it drops down to $33 for renewals. Total cost to the airport for SIDA and sterile area badges for initial is $177 per badge, which drops to $125 for renewals. And every time we deal with a lost badge, it costs us approximately $24. That includes both the materials, supplies for those badges, plus postage and handling for the scenarios where we have to send some information out as hard copies for part of the background check process, fingerprinting fees, and an enrollment fee. So everybody that has a badge gets enrolled into a security program by the TSA that continually checks for new violations that might prevent that person from being able to maintain that badge. So enrolling and maintaining that enrollment is also included in that. Adding that to those numbers from the previous slide, that gives us a total annual cost of approximately $20,000 that the airport is paying out of pocket right now. Next slide, please. So we did look at a number of different airports for badging costs. I won't go through the whole table again today. Some airports still charge a very low amount. Really, there's only one in the region that charges a pretty low amount, other than Flagstaff. That's Yuma. They kind of charge $10 across the board for an application fee. Everybody else has fees that are considerably higher than that. The high for AOA badges is $100. The high for SIDA sterile area badges is around $210. The high for lost badges is $200, a pretty steep number there, and the low is $30 for lost badges. The average tends to be somewhere in the middle of that, somewhere in the $75 to $150 range seems to be most common for most badges. So as part of this process, we wanted to start with this group to propose some badge fees for the Flagstaff Airport. And the next slide after this, before we'll have a chance for some discussion today and potentially a vote on this. But I will also go over the process, how that works. Any fees added in the city of Flagstaff have to go through a multi-step process before they're implemented. So this is one of those steps. So I'll go over that in a little bit. But what we wanted to propose for the fees was separate costs for initial credentials versus renewals due to those different costs to the airport. And our attempt was to recover all material and outside costs and at least a portion of the labor costs while keeping it affordable for our tenants and our aircraft users. Our proposal would also be to increase in 2 years to build that in. Part of the reason that we'd like to add that increase is because we do have to go through that process every time a fee changes. So as if we can have that added up front, that does save a lot of staff time, a lot of commission time if we want to do that in the future. So it's kind of nice to have that built in right up front. And one of the things we talked about in the last meeting, I think my takeaway was the big reason that they weren't approved at the previous meeting was we did not include an exemption for contractors working on airport funded projects. One of the things on the previous slide we did note was that some of the airports do waive those fees for contractors that are working on behalf of the airport. I think the reason being, if the city is paying a contractor to be here, if we make them pay a badge fee, they're probably just going to pass that back to the city, potentially with some kind of markup. So I think, I can't remember which commissioner it was brought that up. I think it was a good idea to potentially exempt that cost. So really, the badge fees we proposed here are essentially the same as what we did before. We went back and forth in that meeting on a number of different ways. How do we word that exemption? Did we add a whole new, like you'll see some airports have a whole category for contractor badge fees. Rather than doing that, because our contractors do access various parts of the airport. So for example, some contractors may only need an AOA badge. Some contractors may need a side or sterile area badge. Rather than adding essentially 4 new categories for initial and renewal for SIDA and AOA for contractors, we thought just adding a note to the bottom of this might be a good way to go. And so when these fees are adopted, they will eventually make it into the airport rules and regulations, which are adopted into city code. So potentially a note at the very bottom of this with an asterisk is says something to the effect of contractors working on airport funded projects are exempt from the initial and renewal badge fees above. The reason we phrase it that way is that doesn't make them exempt from lost badge fees. We still want to encourage contractors to keep their badges in possession. So because of that, we would probably not, I would not propose to exempt them from the lost badge fees, but hopefully a sentence like this could exempt them from the initial and renewal AOA or side of badge fees. So that was what we were proposing. Claire, can you go one more slide? Do I have another one after that, or is that the? I'm sorry, I feel like I must have dropped off a slide there. So I'll just briefly, I'll go over what the process is for fee adoption in the city of Flagstaff. So as Jordana mentioned earlier in the presentation, the airport is classified as an advisory committee. So typically when we take something like a new fee to city council, they're going to want to know what the airport commission, how they felt about those fees. And it doesn't necessarily mean they can't choose to do something else, but they usually ask for what that recommendation was. So for a fee like this, what has to happen is we put together a report, airport staff, along with usually staff in the city's management services division, put together a report showing what the proposed fees are, giving some of the background information like I shared in this today. That goes out for a 60-day public notice period. And then it goes before council, who votes on the adoption of that fee. And so if council approves that fee, taking into account public comment and comment from the airport commission, after that 60-day public comment period, and whatever comments come out of that, then that fee can be adopted and put into place generally as an ordinance in the city code through the airport rules and regulations that the airport can implement. And that doesn't mean that it starts the day it's adopted, because usually it takes staff some time to implement some additional things. So for example, we'll have to add a payment system so we can set payment for things like that. So that'll be, we've looked into that. We know what the process is going to be. We have a plan for it. It's relatively minimum cost because we're going to piggyback on the one that our newly installed visitor center uses through a remote tablet system. But that will be the next steps if this fee is supported.
Can you go back to the slide with the fees on? Okay. So you're hoping if we get a vote on this today, it's not gonna be an 8-point.
Oh, great point. Yes, we will have to change the effective dates. I did not modify the effective dates on this chart. We would have to look back at the effective dates again. My guess is we'd be looking at first of the year realistically, first of 2026. Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, have you gotten any feedback from any of our big badge users on this at all, or do they know anything about it?
We've spoken to the TSA is actually one of our biggest badge users. They have a fairly large number of employees that we do issue badges to, Wiseman Aviation being another one. I don't want to speak for them other than to say we have let them know that this is coming. Most of the folks who operate in those types of roles somewhat expect to pay those and have at most airports they operate at. The TSA has actually been asking us to implement this for a long time, even at the local level. They have a program in place for supporting badge fees. American Airlines obviously pays them at almost every commercial service airport they work at. So I don't want to put words in anybody else's mouth, but we have informed them of this. And so far,
we're not gonna have placards at the front gate.
Correct.
Okay.
And I did see that Commissioner Schaus asked a question. Looks like his speaker may not be working, but he's still active in the chat. He asked, would a new lessee be on the hook for a badge fee? So yes, essentially any badge that was issued for any purpose, whether it's a new general aviation tenant with a hangar storage permit or one of our commercial tenants doing something here in the terminal that had a need to go into the secure area of the airfield. If they already have one, they would be on the hook for the renewal fee only. That would be implemented as soon as that started. Obviously, we're not going to charge a initial fee for somebody who already has had their initial one process, but a new tenant in a new hangar would be responsible for that initial badge fee the first time and then the renewal thereon. Similar, a new tenant, really a new employee, say at an airline, would be responsible for the initial SIDA and then the renewal SIDA from there on. That would be the intent, please.
Okay, and so any of the private airplanes that are stored out here, they'll be badged up too, right?
Correct, and so they already have badges. They have the AOA badges typically. Right now, those are being supplied free of charge.
Okay. Any other questions?
So I guess today, from an airport perspective, if there are no questions, what I would ask the commission to consider is if there's any discussion to happen on this, we'd love to hear it. And if anybody felt comfortable voting on these proposed fees, that would be our ultimate goal.
I think, I'm to suggest that we go ahead and vote today because I think we've had enough time to review this, and I think if you come back, I think the critical question was about the contractors. And I think that was Commissioner Hanovich, I think, that brought that up. And to me, it makes sense that if we don't exempt them, they are gonna get the money back and probably at a bonus, so it'll save us dollars to issue them badges in the first place, so. Do any of the commissioners have any objection to calling a vote today?
For the numbers, it seems to be kind of between the high and low. Is that fair to say based on the numbers you got for what you're charging?
For our proposed badge fees? Yeah, that's some of it. Obviously this is a new fee and my personal approach to starting a new fee is we try not to start on the high end. Because we don't want to go from kind of the shock of not charging our current tenants any fee at all to being on the high end of our peer airports. At the same time, we wanted to try to at least cover our costs. And what you see is, or a majority of our costs. So even the fees we proposed did not quite get all the way to 100% cost recovery. We're still absorbing some of those costs internally, administratively, but sort of as close as we thought would be reasonable was what we were shooting for with that fee proposal.
And this is only for like PA, for instance, that needs badges. This is not for visiting ramp fees. People are flying in and staying here for a couple of weeks. It's people that are actually planes parked here.
Correct. The TSA has provisions that allow transient aircraft operators and passengers to access airfields without going through the security credentialing process. It does take some time, usually 1 to 3 weeks, depending on the badge type. So for folks that aren't here for that long, it's challenging. But they do have provisions for those folks to operate sort of between their aircraft and the FBO or however they're accessing the airfield without going through that security badging process.
Any other questions? Okay. With that, I'd like to call for a vote for the commissioners. So should we do a roll call?
Chair Riddell, one quick question. Commissioner Schaus just wrote a comment in the chat. Let me read through that real quick and enunciate that for him. Commissioner Schaus mentioned that he's spoken with several folks who have aircraft stored at the airport, and that the feedback he's received from them is that they would hope that the badge fee would be inclusive in their hangar storage rent. And then he said, however, additional badges for sponsored individual could be shared as fees.
Okay, how would you?
That gets a little tricky. It's certainly something we could consider. I think it becomes a little bit harder to track. So we would say a lot of the aircraft we have stored here are owned by more than one person. So are we saying they get 1 free badge per space that's included, or up to 5 free badges per space? And if that's the case, are we going to raise hangar rent by $200 a month or $500 a month? That's kind of the question, especially when there's a difference between initial and renewal badge fees. That would be another concern I would have, is to say, if it's included in rent, it gets a little bit tricky because those costs do vary so much over time. The other thing that's a little bit challenging with that is that the FAA requires airports to demonstrate that rent that is being charged for aeronautical purposes, specifically things like aircraft storage, are fair and reasonable. We have to do that through rate studies. So we would have to get a consultant on board to adjust the aircraft storage fees to include that permit and try to find some methodology that we could then share with the FAA to prove that that was fair and reasonable before we could implement those. So it really would put a pretty high administrative burden on trying to figure out exactly what that would look like. So it's certainly something we can consider if that's what the commission would advise. I would say that that's a little bit more challenging than I think that we would have the ability to administrate effectively.
This is Commissioner White. I just want to put my 2 cents on that. When you buy a car, you have to have a license, and there's a license fee. When you go to school, you have to get a school ID card, and they usually charge you for that. I just think you need to keep them separate.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me too. You also brought up the security issue. Like if you have multiple people on a plane, that badge is tied to someone they're getting
Correct.
So it'd be hard to have multiple ownership on one badge, right? So.
Yeah, actually, you can't actually have multiple ownership on one badge. We'd have to, they all have to have separate, so.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I think if I'm hearing the commissioners, and my personal opinion is that the individual badging is the way to go and not try to integrate it into the storage fees. So I'd like to propose, if there's not any objections, that we accept the badging fee proposal that the staff has come up with. And I'd like to do a roll call vote on accepting that proposal. So if we could, we'll start with me. I'm going to vote that we do accept it. Commissioner Barraza,
I vote we accept it.
Commissioner Schaus, if you put yours in the chat,
Commissioner South votes no.
and Commissioner White,
This is Commissioner White. I'm gonna vote to approve that motion.
so if I'm right, it's 3-1.
Sounds good.
And so we'll go ahead and you'll forward that to the council then.
Yeah, we'll forward that recommendation to the council and present the fees as proposed in this presentation.
Okay,
Commissioner Schaus did ask one additional question. He asked when the last rent rate study was. I don't have that number in front of me, Commissioner Schaus. I'll have to get that back to you. I know it was a while ago, and we've actually added some budget this year to hopefully update that. That covers a lot of different things. So everything from hangar rent to ground leases for undeveloped space at the airport or previously developed space at the airport, to other user fees such as landing fees that we currently charge our air carriers. Everything like that should be included in that. Fuel flowage fees, for example. So we are looking into what the process is going to be to get somebody on board to update that rate study for us.
do you know how long those rate studies take?
I think it depends on how much you ask them to do. I think ours is going to be relatively extensive since we haven't done one in a while. My guess is it's going to be probably a 3 to 6 month process.
Okay.
Plus a procurement. The city has a procurement process to get that, who is the consultant on board first. So it's going to be a little while before we see those numbers.
And with that, can you refresh my memory on there was some question about property here on the airport about converting it back to aircraft rental space. And Hank, wasn't there something about some of the properties that aren't, or we can't use?
We did previously discuss, and this might be another item I'll have to bring up as a separate agenda item, but
Okay.
we did discuss aeronautical use for activities on the airport and the prohibitions that the FAA has on using land that was set aside as a land grant airport. We were given property by the federal government to create this airport, so we're restricted to using it for aeronautical purposes and have very significant restrictions on using it for anything that's not aeronautical or not airport. So rental cars, for example, are not necessarily aeronautical, but still support the airport operation.
So if you could, at a future meeting, talk about that rate structure review and how we go about it, or if we need to weigh in on it. But for now.
This is Commissioner Schaus. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah,
Apologies. And I have a little objection to raising those rates at this point. I just feel there needs to be further study. Like my point about I don't think we can go back, but the last rent rate study was that if the badges were included as a part of that study or not. Like that's a question I'd like answered.
Whether rent badge fees were incorporated in the last aircraft storage permit study?
So we pay rent for our aircraft there. I'm curious in the last study if badge fees were part of a justification for an increase in rent at all before I would want to even vote to increase or talk about badge fees. It's just a need for more information.
are you asking? I think we've already resolved the badge fee with the vote though.
Got it. Okay, well then we can move on.
Commissioner Schaus, I would add that the last fee study included an annual increase for 10 years, and we're out of increases. So we're sort of beyond the scope of that study as it was anyway. So it's a good question about whether, It's been
If I
2
may,
years
Ray,
since we had.
I put in my first application for a hangar in Flagstaff in 2014, and I didn't get a call until 2020 or something like that. So even when I did get a hangar there, what I ended up coming into compared to what I had originally applied and put in for was totally different anyways. And that's why I'm just curious if, if it's irrelevant, that's fine, but I'd rather vote with all of the relevant information at hand.
If I can just make a note, the item of the hanger rates is not part of our agenda. So it's definitely something we can bring up as a topic at another meeting. And is not, it ties next to, but is not part of our badging fee, discussion.
Well, and again, without the study, I don't know if it is or is not. So that's all I'm curious about, to see that study.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, anything else from any of the airport commissioners? One comment from myself is, want to thank Nico for signing up, joining us, and hopefully we'll see some new members soon, right? Okay, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
This is Commissioner White. I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to adjourn the meeting today.
Okay, second,
I think we should wrap it.
and with that, all those in favor of adjournment? Aye, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned at 14:40. And thank you.